Making mistakes is all part of the learning process, and as a beginner, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Anyway, enough of the condescending tone, and let's show you how to sidestep those pitfalls. Metaphorically, that was just a bit of dog poo I was dodging there. Righto, just before we get cracking, I just want to give a quick shout out, a quick yoo-hoo to Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. If you want to learn more about photography or other things, you should definitely check them out. It's an online sharing community with thousands of classes from business to design to photography and other things as well. But it's not just about learning, you can teach. You can teach classes by uploading. So go check them out. Skillshare, boom, video.
There are plenty of errors you can potentially make when learning photography, but let's start off by cracking open the first 5 first.
Off-kilt horizons, they look wrong. Kilts coming off in the horizon probably look wrong also.
Yes, that's what my neighbours told me anyway.
But look off into the distance between that green thing and that grey thing. That thing should be straight because that's how you see it in real life.
That is, unless you're Rain Man in real life, in which case you see the world at a tilt. It seems like such a small thing, but it can spoil your image in a big way.
Just a tiny bit off is enough to ruin an image, and it's something that's quite easy to overlook because you're too busy figuring out what settings to use or what your subject is doing or where it's going. Do use the tools on your camera. Your camera probably has a grid for your viewfinder or one of those electronic levels. But yeah, the electronic level and grid is quite easy to use when you're shooting something like a landscape because the landscape isn't moving anywhere fast and quite often there's quite a clear horizon. But what if you're shooting something that doesn't have a clear horizon or something that's moving too fast for you to keep checking the electronic level? Do keep using the grid, but look out for other lines or objects. Buildings are a good reference point. In this shot, one would be tempted to use the advertising board as a reference point, but given that I was shooting from an angle in the first place, that advertising board is supposed to be slightly slanted, and if I leveled that up, it's going to make the shot a bit wonky.
You don't need to get it perfect because you can adjust it in post, but get it as close as possible because you'll lose part of the image when you adjust it. Whatever you do, just make sure your image is level before you hit publish.
But then there's a Dutch angle, which technically doesn't have anything to do with Holland. This is a purposely off-kilter shot, quite often used to create a feeling of uneasiness. But this is something you can quite easily get wrong and something that people use all too often to try and make it feel a bit arty. Even the pros get it wrong. Just watch the first 4 movie. The next one is all about getting the basics right.
Basic, but fix your framing and your photos will look anything but basic.
Because if you have an interesting subject but you're not framing it right, it doesn't really matter. Such as having loose framing, like this. I'm over here, by the way. In fact, I could have just done this with VO and just waved my hands, save some time, save some energy talking. There you go. Here's some hand wavy action. Photography shouldn't be about being told what subject to take photos of, so the problem with framing is not so much about what to include in your shot as it is what to exclude from your shot.
Surely you'll know what interested you. Big red dot thing, people, architecture, that beard.
So you know what is that was interesting enough to make you take a shot in the first place, but think of it this way, if somebody else is looking at your photos, will they know what it is that is interesting within that frame? Is it clear enough?
Loose framing adds unnecessary information that dilutes what you're trying to show. Move in closer. This photo doesn't mean anything in particular, but does a better job of doing it.
Another thing that you can try is to just open up the photos that are already on your hard drive in your editing software and just crop them in. See if you can improve any of the photos just by cropping in tighter. The other mistake you might make is to frame things too tight. And look at this, that's just too much face. More face than one really needs.
You want to frame it tight enough, but be careful not to cut off things like your subject's legs. It will look odd. And I don't mean literally cutting their legs off all of a sudden.
Yes, so crop it in tight, but not too tight. You need a bit of context in your photo, right?
And it's not just about cropping off body parts. Adding just a bit more visuals that will reveal a little bit more about the subject or the scene will add a lot more to the photo.
Applying filters and effects to your photos can make them visually more appealing, but you can have too much of a good thing, like too many bloody filters and effects, whether it be digital or actual physical filters.
Doing it digitally is cheating. It's fake. It has to be done in camera.
With Instagram, creative filters, LUTs, as well as the old school filters, it's all too easy to go crazy with them.
You brought your filters?
1 on 100. Because you get an instant effect that is pleasing to the eye.
I quite like the green.
but it's just the surface layer.
Don't get me wrong, filters and effects, totally fine, but it should be the icing on the cake. You still need that moist, spongy bit that is subject, framing, composition to make a nice cake. I'm hungry now.
You can't just have an image that is all about that single layer, or in this case, 100.
Ooh! Ooh! It's like a POV of a birth.
Now the fifth mistake in this list is making images that are too soft. Now one big complaint I always hear from new photographers is my image is too soft, it's not sharp enough, it's fuzzy. Now there are a couple of reasons why you might be making images that are too soft. Number one, you're just too damn bloody shaky. Or number two, wrong settings on the camera.
And there are a few potential causes of this.
Number one, shutter speed too slow, and what you can do to try and minimize this is to use a shutter speed that is 1/ and your focal length. Easy. Number two, not in focus. The fix is to focus it properly first. Number three, depth of field too shallow. Large aperture, smaller number, small bit in focus, so the other stuff is blurry, looks soft. Number four, diffraction, opposite end of the spectrum, small aperture, larger f number. It's soft because all that light is trying to go through a small aperture. And I just realised how rude that looks. Yeah, anyway, think of it this way. If you go really squinty McSquinty with your eyes like this, just look how crap the world is when you've got your eyes all like that. But the big mistake here is getting so wrapped up into thinking, oh, my image is too soft, it's not sharp enough, and then you end up getting another lens, a new camera. Do not buy new gear just to fix that. Focus, if you excuse the lame-ass photography pun, on making good shots first. Nobody cares about how sharp your image is. Only yourself.
Yeah, so the last mistake is not so much that you're making images that are too soft, but thinking that you are. It's the feeling that your photos aren't cutting it due to some technicality, that your gear isn't working well for you. Nobody's going to look down at you for having a soft image, but they will if the photo is ultimately lacking any substance.
So that's it for this video, and another big yoo-hoo to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare! It's great if you want to learn more stuff about photography.
Content by photographers giving tips and a sneak peek into their work, like this series about cityscapes. The premium membership costs less than $10 a month, which is cheaper than a lot of other online learning platforms, and gives unlimited access to all the classes.
So yeah, check them out if you want to watch more tutorials about photography or business or design or even knitting. And what's more, there's a special little promo right here.
Skillshare is offering a 2-month trial for the first 500 of you lovely people. You can take advantage of that offer by using the following link, which is in the description below. Okay, that really is it. Thank you for watching. Please tickle that like button if you really feel like tickling today, and subscribe. Right, I'm gonna go home now. See ya.